This week, a story about decisions. I recently visited with a prospective client. Dr. Jane grosses over $1 million per year with a reasonable but not outstanding net. She's dynamic and her patients love her. She has a beautiful facility which she designed herself. She toils late into the evening, handling coding and billing issues, paying her bills, designing forms and promotions, reviewing products. Unfortunately, as her practice has grown, so too has her workload. She experiences continual staff turnover, which exacerbates her stress. She's often heard saying, "I just can't find good help." She's turned down opportunities to be involved in her community. She misses her daughter's soccer games. Dr. Jane recognizes that her primary responsibility is to provide answers, solutions for her patients. She does a good job at it, starting with her great education and then honing her medical skills over the past decade. She's smart and she knows it. But something's wrong. While successful on the outside, Dr. Jane has turned into a miserable workaholic, and it's now impacting her practice, her income, and her personal life. Dr. Jane has failed to distinguish between her role as a doctor and her role as a CEO. Dr. Jane thinks like a doctor, regardless of the hat that she's wearing. As a result, she micromanages her team, providing them with detailed direction as it relates not only to desired outcomes, but to the individual steps necessary for project completion. Then Dr. Jane hovers over the work. Jane is a perfectionist and expects perfection with every task. Thus, Dr. Jane, who does attempt to hire good people, burns them up by failing to allow them to develop their skills. Her motto is, "It's easier to do it myself." Many years ago, I found myself in Dr. Jane's shoes. I remember speaking to an acquaintance of mine, the retired CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I was lamenting about how I couldn't seem to get my then small staff to do things the way I wanted them done. At the time, and I remember it very well, I was actually reviewing a letter to a vendor, drafted by my bookkeeper about a mistake on a recent invoice. Like everything I was trying to do, the letter had to be perfect, and I found myself investing 30 minutes on what I later concluded was a ridiculous waste of my time. My friend's response to my query, "Most of the time, Al, 85% is just fine." In other words, most of the time imperfection is okay. It's that extra 15% that saps the strength of an enterprise. Outside of your medical care, you can have imperfection and be successful. What my friend was actually saying was, allow your team to make mistakes. It's only through failure that we learn anything, and if we are, as leaders, too quick to pick up the project, we end with the precise opposite effect that we desire. We end up enabling the very mediocrity that we wish to avoid, since our team develops a learned response to our request, namely, "Don't work too hard on the project," as he'll only change it, correct it, or criticize it. There are certainly tasks and projects that require your involvement, but in reality, if you've laid out a clear vision for your desired outcomes, you can delegate most tasks and even decision making. Further, if you provide your team with effective leadership and permission, things get resolved and processes improve without your even knowing it. What's an action-oriented team worth? I'm a big believer in delegating decision-making. It's one thing to delegate a task, but when you delegate both authority and responsibility, you're on your way to a level of freedom that you deserve. There's amazing freedom that results from your ability to have conversations like this. "Sarah, from now on, you're the president of office supplies. Here are my expectations, and here's the practice credit card necessary for you to do your job." Now Sarah owns this job. This is the kind of freedom that motivates people, especially millennials. Make sure that you not only delegate a task or objective, but also that the person to whom you've delegated clearly understand not just what to do, but why it's being done. When people understand the why of things, they can figure out the how of things, even in changing circumstances. Delegation is the key to leveraging your time and energy. You'll be amazed at what you can get rid of. Further, your team will become more self-sufficient, more enthusiastic, and more satisfied when they've received the responsibility of the job and the authority necessary to get it done. And lastly, you and your practice will benefit from the additional time that you now available to focus on more strategic, bigger picture issues like how to add 100,000 in revenue next year or how to attend each and every one of your child's soccer matches. 40 years ago, I wrote a note to myself about building team. Surround yourself with good people, nurture them, get out of their way, let their success be yours. If you're struggling with these kinds of issues, give us a call. We're here to help.